Hi, I'm P.T. Burns, and this is a guide to creating puppets for the stage. Puppetry to me is one of the most exciting ways to bring a character to life, especially non-human characters like the animals in the world of Tailspin. In this guide, we'll go over choosing the right sort of puppet to work with for each character, prototyping them, choosing your materials, building them, and operating them. If you're new to puppetry, it could seem like a complicated or technical field, but it really doesn't have to be. At its heart, puppetry comes down to object movement, a human performer moving another object to create a sense of story, life, or character. How much distance you have between them and how much movement really is all it comes down to for any type of puppet you're working with. The two big categories here that you can look at are direct or indirect movement or manipulation of the object. Direct manipulation is by far the simplest one, and from starting off with it, it's what children are already doing every time they play with a toy. If you have a stuffed animal as your character, direct manipulation of it as a puppet comes down to any sort of movement you're giving it to create life for the character. For a lot of kids, this could be everything you need to create a character right here. Allow them to hold the character, bring life to it, and it's as simple as that. Whole fields of puppetry in tabletop or the Japanese form of bunraku are professional puppeteers working in exactly this way to manipulate an object and bring it life. If you're looking to take a step forward in complexity of a direct manipulation puppet, the next step is something like a hand puppet. This can be a sock puppet, a finger puppet, or anything where you have your hand inside of the puppet to operate it and give it life. There's so many guides out there for putting something together like this, and it's something that can easily be achieved by children of any skill level. Direct manipulation puppets are the most straightforward ones and have the easiest learning curve for any child or performer new to puppetry. But if you're looking to add more distance or more nuance to movement, you can then move into the field of indirect puppetry, something where there is some amount of control or distance in between the puppeteer and the object that they're working with. The first form of indirect manipulation for puppetry is a rod puppet, anything where you have sticks of some sort creating the ability to move the character at a distance. These can be great for larger puppets if you're looking to walk a dog without having to have direct contact between them and the puppeteer, for anything that is swimming or flying, or even when you're trying to hide a puppeteer out of sight from the audience. A rod, whether it's a short dowel or a long broom handle or stick of some sort, can be the first step in creating that distance between the puppeteer and their character. If you're looking to take things even further, there's also the world of marionette puppetry. Marionettes have the most distance between puppeteer and puppet through the use of strings in a controller of some sort. These can be by far a nuanced, beautiful, complicated form of puppet performance, but they're also sometimes where puppetry gets its reputation for being a little complex. If you're up for a challenge, you can always work with these, but they tend to be the most finicky to build on your own and can have the longest learning curve for a performer. This is why you see most theatrical performances with some sort of puppet involved being hand puppets, rod puppets, or something along those lines. You can, of course, always combine elements of these different types of puppet. The hand and rod combination is the most frequent one for any character needing both a mouth and a limb movement at the same time. The Muppets of all sorts and shapes and sizes tend to be built this way and can be a way to add a little complexity without making it too difficult on a new performer. There's many options available once you've decided what type of puppet you want to work with for each character within the show. For direct manipulation, you can always start with an existing stuffed animal, something that can be held and moved around like a character, and actors can find a lot of joy in bringing those to life. There are also many pre-made hand puppets of different sorts for every sort of animal species out there that you can buy online without having to build your own from scratch. But if you're looking to design a character and customize them to make them unique for your show, or looking to have your student performers to be hands-on and get to make their own puppet, you can always start through the process of building and prototyping your own. To start the process of designing your own character, I always like to think about shape and silhouette. I always like to prototype by working with crumpled brown packing paper just to create a shape of what you're working with to then plan everything out from there. So if you were to begin thinking of your prototype for pumpkin, figuring out the dimensions of, okay, I want a cat that is roughly 2 feet long from tip to tail. You can start by creating an analog prototype from your packing paper by taking a 2-foot piece of paper and crumpling it into a shape from there. This gives you the basics of a shape to start working with, to build off of, to figure out the rest of your proportions for this character. You can then create additional pieces of paper for the limbs, any features you're hoping to add on there, and then start attaching it all together with something as simple as packing tape. Within just a couple of minutes, you now have a full prototype of the shape that you're hoping your character might be without requiring any particular skills in sculpture or things like that. This allows you to very quickly figure out what you like or don't like about a design idea, and what you might want to change, and adapt all that before you put any time or money into your more complicated materials. You might decide you want to elongate your torso, add more of a tail, create an exaggerated face, anything like that. But this gives you the ability to play around and figure out shape in a straightforward way that you can do as many iterations with as you would like. Once you have your rough prototype completed, it's now time to move forward in selecting the materials for your character. A question I always like to ask designers is, what is the verb of this puppet? For pumpkin, is it prowl? Is it slink? Is it push away? What is it that you want the character's primary action to be in each scene, in their role in the play as a whole? When you pick the verb, you can then find the materials that fit that verb well. If something is flapping as their main verb, you're going to work with a very different sort of material than something that is slithering, perhaps. So finding the things that are conducive to that. An animal that is cuddly, you might want to find materials like wools or fleeces and felts for an outside, something that is soft and inviting. If you want something to be slithering, looking for an inside that has a lot of flexibility to it, whether it's a slinky or pipe tubing or just an empty sock even. Anything that can sort of capture that in the essence of how the material itself moves. Something that is sturdier or chunkier or more rigid, that you'll want to be working with hard materials on the inside, whereas anything that is softer or cuddlier, you might go for some sort of stuffing or fabric. Almost all of these materials can be sourced in local craft stores or even found at a thrift store or in the bottom of your closet or supply room. That you can start with papers to build things, although those don't have as much durability in the long term. So if you're rehearsing a lot and you're putting a lot of wear and tear on your puppets, you then want to start looking at things that have a bit more resilience to them and that can be attached in permanent ways. So for the outsides, you can look at fabrics. Things like existing knitwear can get you a lot of distance in creating a puppet outside pretty quickly, or you can look at picking up fake furs, fleeces, anything with a little bit of fuzz to it. This is something known as sympathetic movement. Anytime there's aspects of the puppet's skin, hair, ears, antennas that have some shake or energy to them, even when the puppeteer isn't moving them, that can really help add life to a puppet character. You can also work with felts and fleeces. There's a lot of classic puppets that use these for their outsides as well. Whatever materials you have on hand, they can be great ways to build out a puppet from the ground up. For the insides of a puppet, you can start as simply as building the exterior of the puppet around your rough paper prototype, if that's easiest for you. Getting any stuffing or batting like you would put in a quilt or a stuffed animal can be another easy option. Or if you're looking to have some connective joints between all of them, putting together rope or string in the same silhouette as you built your paper in can help to run that through the whole inside of the puppet to help keep it together throughout the performance. There are three main qualities to giving life to a puppet: breath, focus, and weight. Breath is the most straightforward one, starting with any type of puppet that you've finished, of how do you give them breath? How do they breathe like they're a living thing? This is something that puppeteers will practice anytime they're being introduced to their new puppet, finding how the character breathes, especially having drills of having them sort of trying to find and mirror their own, and then moving on to how does it breathe when it's excited? How does it breathe when it's nervous? How does it breathe when it's falling asleep? All these exercises can be ways to help connect between the life of the performer and the life they're hoping to give their puppet. Once you've captured breath, that's something you'll always keep going throughout other scenes, other elements, you then move to focus. How do you give the audience the perception that the character is looking at a particular thing in a particular direction? What catches their attention? Seeing these shifts from the puppet rather than the puppeteer is what really conveys the attention and focus in a scene with the puppet. And finally, weight. This is something that, especially if you're working with stuffed animals and things that don't have much mass of their own, how do you convey the sense that they are full of life and bones and weight as if they're a living thing? Practicing walking and giving extra effort to every step if they're much larger and heavier, or if they're a flying creature, how do they have no weight at all as they move through the air? Creating the illusion of weight is a big part of how you then give that sense of reality to any character that you're moving around, especially when it is built differently than the thing it is pretending to be. This is all a quick introduction to the field, and hopefully is helpful in getting you started on your path to making and performing puppetry of your own. There are so many wonderful resources out there for any type of puppetry that you're hoping to work with. So once you've made your choices and started down this road, you can always look to all the other puppeteers that have come before you for any and all shapes and sorts of creatures that you're working with within your production of Tailspin.